Creative expression. You don't have to be a big artist or super duper, I don't know, music person or whatever it be. It's a creative expression is vital for us humans, but it doesn't mean we have to produce these beautiful pictures or beautiful art or something like that.
It's personal.
Everybody, yeah, it's very personal, and it doesn't mean you have to share it either, but creative expression is so important for personal growth. We're going to talk about this topic today because I think it's so important for our health. We know it impacts the brain, and there's lots of ways to be creative, expressive without thinking or being intimidated that, oh, I'm not a good artist.
Well, and I love that because I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself to be the opposite of an artist, the least creative human being. And it scares me to even like draw because I'm so terrible. But creative expression is different for every person, which we will dive into.
It comes down to what is really being creative, right?
Right.
Like, people think
What's
creative
considered
immediately means art. Like creative can also be what clothes you put on, and you know,
how you're expressing yourself.
How you express yourself. That's what really creative expression is. So we're going to talk about that. I'm Heike Fallon. I'm a personal performance coach. I help my clients with their self-leadership with a brain-based approach, because when we lead ourselves from within, we can definitely show up as better leaders and fulfill our roles more effectively, and definitely also feel happier and fulfilled.
Right. Hi, I'm Shannon Passalacqua. I am also a high performance coach, and I specialize in helping women heal after miscarriages.
And creative expression.
So creative expression was a huge tool for me to help through my healing process. And it is something that I highly encourage the women I work with to do. And it is not something that, like I said before, is not something that comes naturally to me. And I'm going to tell a quick story and then we can go into why these things work. I personally did my own creative expression, not knowing that that's what I was doing when I was healing from my miscarriages. And I learned a lot from it. And I highly encourage the women I work with to do it. One of the things I did was I was creating a blog to help, kind of just tell my story. And so other women who had had miscarriages didn't feel as alone. And what I did was I wrote my story about my miscarriages for a couple days in a row. And I let myself feel all the emotions that came with it, all the sadness, the grief, the shame, everything that came with it. I cried, I drank wine, I I did it all. And I did it for a couple days in a row. And I did not know at that time that what I was doing is actually something that's been studied and has a lot of science to back it up, that I was journaling my trauma, and I felt a million times better afterwards because I'd gotten it out of me. And another thing that I did was I helped create a tattoo in remembrance of my babies. And just the process of creating that tattoo and, figuring out what I wanted and that was another way of expressing my emotions through creative expression. I just thought that was very interesting, and that was also helpful to help me in my healing. And I know a lot of women do that as well when they've gone through miscarriages.
And I think that is definitely one key component of creative expression, is the letting the emotions come out and kind of processing the emotions in the pace that's right for you. I think that is a huge component. I think I would consider myself generally a pretty creative person. I don't care about putting my pictures up or something, so I'm not a painter, but I do lots of arts and crafts, or I do a lot of home projects and stuff like that. So there's a lot of creativity in there. For me, I find it's a lot more the stress reduction. It really helps me managing my energy. So it just gives me energy when I'm creative and I'm solving some problems or figure things out, and then it's the end product of something that comes out of it. Doesn't need to be, like I said, I'm not the big painter, but I just love yeah, doing something with my hands, artsy, crafty.
It's the release. And I think there's, again, going to the neural pathways. And once you're creative in one way, it's going to help, help you be creative in other ways. It helps stimulate your brain. And again, going back to the journaling or the creating of something, I think a lot of people think, especially if they're in grief, that if they write it down or if they do something, it's going to bring out too much pain. It's going to bring it up too much. When the opposite is true, it helps lower your stress hormones. It helps with improved breathing because you're getting it out of you. And so I think that's really interesting that when we go into it, we think it's going to bring about too much emotion, when in fact it does the opposite, and it helps lower our stress, and it helps kind of get that release out.
And it might be a little difficult stretch in between.
Absolutely. It's
uncomfortable.
not easy at the time. When I was doing my writing, I was crying while I was doing it.
It's uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, again, we'll talk about the different types of creative expression. Some people create or express themselves in dance, which is, if I tried to do that, I would just laugh at myself because that's just
I don't know. I love dancing. So, I mean, isn't that when I just love dancing.
I do love dancing. I do love dancing.
Randomly. I like just randomly dance, know, I could be dancing.
I mean, I'm not a good dancer. No one would ever call me a good dancer.
But that is a creative expression in the moment. Doesn't matter. Nobody's looking at me. I mean, it could be by myself at home and I'm just dancing.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for sure.
It's a creative expression, right? Doesn't mean somebody needs to see it. I'm just expressing myself in that moment. But I do want to just very quick, because you said that, and I don't know if that came out well enough, but the cool part about creative expression is that there's the emotional component, a cognitive component, and a motor component. Again, dance, of course, bigger. Otherwise, you use your hands or your writing. But those three things are happening at the same time when we are engaged in creative expression, and that's kind of what makes it so special, because of all the different brain areas working all together very strongly. So I think that's what really is very unique. Now there's by the way, I want to mention a book because I thought that was really cool. Your Brain on Art. And it kind of goes through really the different forms of art and how it impacts it, from the dance, from, architecture, even viewing art and stuff like that, the impacts on the brain.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put that below in the description if anybody wants to geek out a little bit more on the impact on the brain.
Isn't there science that shows that even if you can't get out in nature, if you can look at a piece of art with nature in it, it helps lower your cortisol levels?
Yep, because the brain doesn't know the difference.
Oh, crazy.
It's the same way as we put those virtual goggles on, right?
Yes, my son.
The brain thinks they're there. Actually, I saw, which is kind of neat too. I saw just a documentary or something about they're using that now with people in prison, and they're learning how to be a car mechanic by using those goggles, and they think they in the shop doing it, but they're not. They're doing it virtually, but the brain thinks it's there. So we do know that whatever we see, or whatever virtual stuff is there, the brain believes it. So yes, so by just looking at that, now I don't know if you can express yourself, but just virtually, I think you do still need to do something. Yeah. But the key, I think, too, is and why creative expression is so powerful. And we're both, certified high performance coaches. And in the second block of coaching sessions, there is a whole session about creative expression. And it's really about also authenticity, who we really are and connecting to who we are. And that is just so important for all areas of life, that we connect with ourselves of who we are. And creative expression can be a really great way to connect to who we are, being authentic, congruent with ourselves, our values, and it can have a different new purpose and meaning. So when we get a little off track. So, I think for me, there's also been always having a goal, right? To some, like a project or something that I'm doing where I feel like, you know, I'm getting to do it, you know, like that it'd be, I mean, a simple thing back then, scrapbooking. I used to scrapbook quite a bit.
Oh my God.
Hey, that was the in thing
No,
that
I know that it still is, and I know
for it,
some people who do it.
but I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it though, because we used to meet with a group of people. So we would do it together. So there's a whole community effect that comes into as well, as we talked about in another episode about the importance of community. So that
I think it's interesting that, and this goes back to being personal. Like, I know so many people who love scrapbooking. I hate it. It stresses me out because I don't feel like I'm making something that's pretty, because I'm not good at making things pretty, but I'm good at writing.
but that's what you think.
No, I've tried, trust me.
But the scrapbooking was made so simple. You didn't even have to express yourself.
Doesn't even matter.
Remade.
I know.
Well, the point is that I think there's so many components that come together when we express ourselves. And also, again, that can be in a community, like somebody that does dance, or somebody, you know, doing art as a group or something. There's a community effect that comes into play as well. But the key part, I think, is that you're connecting and you're doing something that you enjoy. You did not enjoy scrapbooking, so forget it.
Well, and you said it really well about, you know, being authentic, and it's connecting with that authentic self, you know, that authentic part of yourself, which I think these days can be very difficult to find. You know, we could just kind of just be going through our day willy-nilly, and if we're not connecting with ourselves and learning how to be authentic, and really learning who our authentic self is, it can be easy to avoid that. And when we're being creative, it helps ground us. And that's why I think, you know, writing for me is such a big deal. I know that I have a book too called Transforming Trauma.
Oh, I've not read it yet. Cool.
And it's by James Gordon. He's a doctor, and he talks about the importance of moving your body, and how that helps heal your trauma, and, you know, you're in connection with your body. And I find that to be it's really interesting, like reconnecting with your body and your mind, and just letting it go, letting it out.
And I think too, it at the end of the day, we want to gain more clarity, right, of who we are, what we want. And if trauma or other stress is more present, it's kind of hard. Like sometimes we might feel lost or stuck or whatever it be. And when we do something creative, it helps us also kind of focus, and and at least for me, it helps. Like, it focuses me again, and I'm like, I may even do something and at the same time have other thoughts and solve other things that I was otherwise thinking about, but because I'm actually creating something or doing something that solves other thoughts I have.
Well, it's, you know, again, another book, Burnout. It's helping you. Oh, got a lot of book recommendations. It's helping you process and get through that stress cycle, right? Like, we can get stuck in a stress cycle, and when we haven't completed it, when we haven't gotten through it, we're stuck. But one of the ways to get to the end and to complete the stress cycle is creative expression.
Yeah. So here's the thing. How do you get started? I think number one thing is to think a little bit about general question would be like, what makes me unique? Who am I, right? What do I know we do, like, oftentimes the, you know, the 3 words. What are the 3 words that describe the best of who I am? That doesn't mean I'm there yet or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
how you want to show up as your best self.
How do I want to show up? Like, who am I, right? To kind of think of that a little bit. But then also, first off, finding what's joyful for you. Like, scrapbooking, not your thing.
Just
So,
stresses me out just thinking about it right now.
well, the long form journaling is not my thing. So that
And
just
I love it.
the long form I'm the bullet point journaler. That's
So
my
funny.
kind of form. I do the short form. I'm the short form journaler. But the key is what activities bring you joy. There's
Mhm.
no point to force yourself for scrapbooking. There's no point of forcing yourself to long form journaling. There's no point of like, all of a sudden think I need to like paint with
Become a
pastels.
painter.
Yeah. If that's not your thing, there's no point.
Can I tell a story again?
Sure.
Story time. So another way to find how other ways to become expressive. I tell my clients, and I do this myself, what did you enjoy when you were younger? And it's funny because just recently I was like, I need something that is going to lower my stress. It's not going to be like hard to do, but I don't want to watch TV. I don't want to be in front of a screen. It doesn't always have to be reading. And I thought back to when I was younger. It's so dorky. I used to do latch hook. I don't know if anyone knows what this is, but it's almost like what was it?
Oh, like
Uh,
knitting, but the
it's
one with
almost like yes, but it's like
yeah,
latch. It's with
you
a
just
little hook thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Super
yeah.
easy,
I
super like
It
I just
makes
bought
just the
myself the
string.
kit.
Is it the
Yes,
one that makes just the string, right? Or is it the one that you could actually make a
have
like?
the hook and you make a picture and
Oh, you make
you're following
yeah.
there's a
I know.
color that you're supposed to
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
match and you just super easy. But I just bought a kit for myself because I did that when I was younger and I'm like, this is something that'll just lower my stress. It's really easy. Like I'm not gonna be in front of a screen. I'll just do it. I can just do it in bed. I could just do it while like hanging out with the
I love
family.
it.
And another thing that I love to do that I'm really trying to get back into is horseback riding. And we talked about this, you and I. Equine therapy is another way of creative expression. Like riding horses, you have that connection with the horse. The therapy that comes from that is amazing. I used to ride horses when I was younger. I really want to get back into it. But I just think back to what you loved to do when you were younger
Yep.
and try adding that back in.
That would have been my next thing. How can you add more creativity in your life? How can you? And oftentimes I think it's making time first.
Oh,
Make time for it and schedule it because
mm-hmm. You have
it's
to
it's
schedule
one of
things.
those things that I think easily falls off, and definitely in my life.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
it just keeps going, and then you're like, it's off. Like, no, I need to actually put things like that in the calendar and block some time in order to actually make it happen.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's so, again, creative expression can also be like, how does your house look like? How does your environment look like? Like, are
Yeah.
you expressing, does
Who
your
you are.
yeah, does your room or space that you're living in reflect who you are? Like your office, for example, not that everybody can arrange their own office necessarily
Mhm.
fully, but to also, which by the way, there's studies that shown that people are more productive if they have things in their office, at their work office, that they connect with. If it be
Mhm.
like a picture from, a trip or their loved ones or something, personalize your room, your environment.
Yep.
It's an impact on your mental health and your productivity. I thought that was very cool. So there's actually research out. So how do you express yourself in that way, by decorating or the clothes you're wearing, it
Yep.
doesn't mean everybody has to run around with like, very creative clothing or hairstyle or who knows what, but whoever you are, right? How do you express yourself? I think that how can you bring in more in your daily life and in your environment, or is your environment even set up that you
Right.
have space to be
Expressive.
creative in it, you know?
I think that's a really good question. How can I add more? I think how can I add more of myself?
Yeah, actually, that's that's actually it, right? How can I bring myself in more
Yeah.
into the day? Like,
But oftentimes we don't know who we really are. So it goes back to finding that clarity, figuring out, okay, who am I? And then how can I add more of who I am to my day and to my life and
and
to the environment I'm living in?
and that who am I? It's okay, we don't know because just participating in the creative expression
Mhm.
helps you gain more clarity of who you are.
Mhm.
So it's kind of
Yeah,
like
it is. You know what? That just makes me think, like my son, he changes the way his room looks all the time. And I love that he does it because he's expressing who he is, and he controls that environment. He can control what his room looks like. And he changes, whatever sports he's following at the time, like what he's putting on his walls and da 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 da. And I just think he's learning how to do that now,
yep.
and knowing like what he's interested in. I think that's really important for us, like surrounding yourself with something that interests you and something that's going to inspire you.
Yeah, I think that's great, because that's a, again, it's not about like I need to make like this big beautiful piece
Right,
of
doesn't
art.
have to.
If you're an artist, great, good. But if you don't, you can express yourself with like redecorating your room, or
Mhm.
changing your environment, or finding things that you used to love and reignite.
Yeah.
And the key is just really working on it. As we always say, it's a journey. It's like, it's part of who we are, and we change.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought about my latch hooking days
And you may
forever.
and you may create a whole new experience with it. It might be also
Mhm.
different than it used to be, of whatever you connected at the time, because you're different now than you were then, but it still might bring you joy, or even more joy, or different joy, or whatever
Yeah.
it is. So, but that's so cool. So creative expression is really a big component of who we are as humans, and the personal growth that comes with creative expression in a fun way, I think
Yeah,
is
don't get scared off by it because you may not be artsy.
no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Just have fun with it.
Yeah. Connect with yourself and figure out the best way that you can do it.
Love it, love it. Go out and be creative, expressive, be you.
And share it with us. Show us
Share
what
it with us.
you're doing.
Share it below.
I'll share with you my latch hooking.
Okay, share that below someday when it's done. Or the process, the process. I love that too.
Right.
All right,
Right.
until next time. This was the
All
episode of
right.
Expression, but until next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.